What is up, college baseball fans? Welcome to another episode of the 11.7 podcast. Big day today. It is our first episode of the Home Field Apparel Tour. They just released the kind of like the mock-ups. Well, not mock-ups. These are real or I can't say jerseys. They're real pullovers of college teams. Something we've been working with them all year on. 10 teams that they're releasing retro style hats and pullovers. Like the retro BP tops. So I know for all the podcast listeners out there, you're gonna have to check it out on their website, homefieldapparel.com. But they just released it this morning, Monday morning, on their Twitter account as well. A little sneak peek, a teaser, as you will. And Dimitri's about to share a screen right here so we can take a look together. But these will be launching Friday, 10 a.m. Set an alarm, set a reminder because these will sell out fast. The good news, we have a promo code, 15% off all of these pullovers, all of these retro style hats. And the promo code that helps us out, helps them out, he'll help you out, is just CWS24. So think College World Series 24. And that's a little sneak peek they put out yesterday of all 10 teams. We just tweeted out right there. Dimitri, I just put a tweet out. Go back down. Go back. Go to our page
What? What?
or theirs. There we go.
Boom.
So they released 5 of them this morning. You got the Florida Gators, powder blue. You got the LSU throwback purple and gold. The hat for LSU is sick. So there's Florida. LSU hat, pullover, awesome. Something perfect to wear this postseason. The Tennessee, we get a softball one too. The Lady Vols, the powder blue, but the white baseball with that retro style two-toned hat. I mean, you're going to be seeing that at frat parties all year, all fall. These are perfect to wear for not only college baseball, but if you support their football team, their basketball team, or just any kind of party, darty, nightclub experience. These are sick. Mississippi State. We've seen Mississippi State wear these jerseys. They went retro throwback a few years ago. So it stayed across the chest. But they also have TCU, Tulane, Arizona, Arizona State, and who are the other 2 teams I'm forgetting? Auburn. Auburn is one they released
Today.
as well.
I know. Are we saying the names for the ones that are coming out later this week?
Oh yeah, they've already released all the names.
Okay. Tulane was on there too, which is
Tulane.
a major love.
Yeah, and so the best way to put it to you guys, because I know everybody's college baseball fans here listening to the pod. Man, this is a test run for them. Like they approached us early in the season. We came up with big ideas for them, and well, I mean, this was their idea. We didn't think this was possible, but if this does well, if these jerseys sell out, or sorry, if these pullovers sell out, if these hats sell out, they have a catalog and partnerships and relationships with over like close to 200 colleges out there. And they basically told us this is the starting point because if these do well, they will do more and more and more. So even if you're like an Oklahoma State fan, buy a jersey, buy a hat, or buy a pullover, buy a hat. Like, because that's going to help you out because they might release the Oklahoma State retros. And it's awesome premium material. Again, everything will be sold online, homefieldapparel.com Friday. I'm not kidding. Log in an hour early. Get ready for the drop because these might sell out within 20 minutes. Very, very important to us. They're helping us out with our weekend series pick'em winners and setting them up in Omaha. They're setting us up in Omaha. Big things planned for this postseason with us and Home Field Apparel. So I say all that, Dimitri, we have a winner for our Survivor contest. It came down to the second to last regular season week, and it's DeVille, correct?
So I'm going to. This is what we're going to do. Congratulations to Deville, first of all.
Dude, I was knocked out in the second week. I think Dimitri was knocked out in the first or second week.
First
We were
week.
all done.
Done.
At 133 entries, one person survives. Here's
Okay.
the back end of the website with all of the picks and notes. So who did
DeVille,
DeVille win with?
he went Louisiana week 1. He went Cajuns over Rice State with that weekend. Yep.
Yeah.
And then, so DeVille, let's do a search.
And so,
All right.
yeah, while you're doing all this, if you're
What do you
not
mean
familiar with the
wild?
weekend
What do
series
you mean?
pick'em, the pick'em is you pick the winner of the 6 series we post every week, but the survivor, you just pick your favorite one, and you keep going until you lose. And he went all 14 weeks with
13.
a winning pick. So
13.
there was 2 people going into this week. Who did he end up? What was this week's
So he
results?
went Houston. Okay, I'm just going through it. He went Houston over St. John's week 2. He went UCF over South Florida week 3. He went Nebraska over South Alabama week 4. He went Oregon over Cal week 5. See the people that are on YouTube, you can see how fast the list shrinked. Like it went, I don't know, 15 here, and then all of a sudden it was 4 here. So he went Texas A&M over Mississippi State week 6. He went Southern Miss over Troy week 7. And then he went UCF over Kansas State week 8. That was the bold pick that week.
Yeah.
And then he went Texas A&M over Vanderbilt week 9. He went Wake Forest over Florida State week 10. He went Oregon State over, was that Oregon State, Oregon? Yeah. Oregon State over Oregon week 11. Week 12, he went Troy over Louisiana. Wow. That's another wild pick. And then week 13, Dan Luton fell. He went Virginia over NC State. DeVille went Nebraska over Indiana to take the crown, and he gets his free
Prize
trip to
package
Omaha.
from Home Field Apparel. We'll set them up. Last year, we did it in Vegas. This year, it's going to be in Omaha, so it's going to be sick. And so awesome. So we'll reach out to DeVille. I don't know his first and last name, but if you're listening to this, DeVille, reach out to us on Twitter or whatever. We'll give you our phone numbers so that we can set everything up. And Home Field's going to spoil you. Don't worry. But anyways, that was fun to keep up with because who was the other survivor? Luton, I forget who
Dan
it was.
Luton.
We might have persuaded him to take Virginia because we said, hey, Virginia doesn't lose weekend series at home in the month of May. And NC State comes out and takes 2 out of 3 there. So apologies there. But boys, man, a lot happened this weekend. There was I don't know. The SEC we'll dive into here later on. Because Dimitri's only going to be on for about 30 minutes. He's got to go catch a game over in Italy. But Jack and I will dive into the SEC because the standings are nuts. There's 13 teams that I think possibly deserve a spot in a regional. Now it won't happen like that, but I'm telling you, or maybe no, not 13. I'm sorry, 12 teams. Anyways, we'll dive into the SEC later on. I want to talk about my experience at the Georgia Southern versus Louisiana series this weekend. Boots on the ground there. We'll also talk about the ACC standings. We'll talk regional host. Later today, we'll come out with a field of 64, which was almost impossible last night. I was trying to work on it. Dude, it's a crapshoot this year. And we'll talk about big moments and things like that. So I'll leave the floor open. Where do you guys want to start?
Let's talk the weekend a little bit. I mean, there was some big upset. There were some big surprises, and some teams just continue to prove all the doubters wrong. So we can start with here. I want to say something. We talked about last week. Jack and I kind of got in a little argument, or all of us did, but Florida is a tournament team. I really think Florida is a tournament team. I think Kentucky, some could argue that they're the best team in the country right now. They're the most, resume-wise, they're the best team in the country. Florida hung with them all weekend. They could have easily won that series or lost an extra to lose the series. So, I mean, they could have easily got swept too. So it's like one of those things where it's hard to really tell. We don't have a clear-cut, just pure dominant team this year, which I like.
Yeah, I mean, even like Texas A&M, who 3 weeks ago we were saying, number 1 team in the country, clear cut. They have the perfect offense and pitching staff. They lose 2 out of 3 to an Ole Miss team who's fighting for their lives right now. And yeah, I mean, it's tough to even come up with a number 1 team in the country. Like right now, personally, I think the Tennessee Volunteers are the most complete team. They play with an edge. Very good, very, very good coaching staff too. And it's starting to be like, all right, we're going to believe in the Tennessee Volunteers, but at the same time, like Arkansas is right there on their heels. Arkansas comes back last night after we jinxed them on Twitter.
Time out. Jack, we do this every damn episode. Every damn episode, you and your ringtone.
Do not disturb is on. I don't know how that happened. I really don't. That's why there was clear perplexity.
My heart rate goes through the roof every single time.
Do not disturb is on. I don't know how that happened. Swear to God. Do you know who's calling?
Make an adjustment. Make it a freaking adjustment.
Do not disturb is on. Also, but do you know who it was that was calling me?
Tim Corbin. Tim Corbin's my guess.
That would be.
He's called into the show before.
Way cooler, but he lives right down the street, Roland Fanning.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, he is the most exciting coach in college baseball.
Those post-game interviews are becoming must-watch television.
Yeah. Coach Roland Fanning of Austin P, leading the country in homers and gives the best post-game interviews of all time.
What? Can you guys explain the video you put in the group? I went through all the texts earlier today. What was he doing screaming, standing up on top of the turtle?
Lyle Miller Green, who is like their Jack Hags, for those who haven't heard me brag about him all year. And he was starting on the mound on Sunday, so only got 2 rounds in the cages. So to fire him up, Roland got on top of the turtle during his round and just started screaming. It was the most asinine shit I've ever seen in my life.
Talk about a guy that's for the player.
You know how you remember Four Loko? Like when Four Loko, the alcohol drink, came out, it was basically like drinking battery acid, and it was just loaded with caffeine and alcohol. College kids everywhere blacking out. I think Mountain Dew sends Roland Fanning a special formula because that's all he drinks is Mountain Dew, and it's just something different about his formula that just wires him differently.
What if it's not actually Mountain Dew in there?
I mean, it's a possibility.
Dew, but he drinks a little bit or pours a little bit out and puts something else in there.
Dude,
maybe a little.
Don't want to speculate, but
workout in there.
I think
that guy's caffeine levels are through the roof.
The Redneck Margaritas, tequila, Mountain Dew, and a hint of Doritos seasoning on top. So I could see that be right up the boys' alley.
What if he just pours a scoop of pre-workout and just sips on Mountain Dew pre-workout?
It might be. He probably takes in over a gram of because what's a Mountain Dew have? Maybe 100 milligrams of caffeine. He drinks more than 10 a day. He gets over a gram of caffeine a day. That guy's special though. And dude, his team leading the country in home runs. Austin P is going to be an exciting regional team if they win the ASUN.
Yeah. So what are we thinking here?
Dimitri, you got to remember this is a podcast. What are we talking here? Oh, you scared?
No. Hold on. I got to open image in new tab. We are going to share this image. This is a 1 liter thing of Mountain Dew.
46 grams. Oh, wait, times 3. No, it's times 3.5 because there's 3.5 servings. I mean, he's putting in 140 grams of sugar.
Yeah, that'll get it done.
Dude, he's special though. He's a special coach. I mean, Jack and I were talking off air a few weeks, or maybe like last week. But I mean, he's one of the next, I think, prime head coaching targets. He's going to be coaching in the SEC or Big 12 sometime very soon.
Is he a 1 liter or 2 liter guy?
Oh, 2 liter.
2 liters. So this
is for 1 liter.
Oh my God.
A lot of sugar, a lot of caffeine out of that guy.
I like how he kept it OG though. He wasn't a Baja Blast guy. Straight up for him. But yeah, Ben, I'm with you. I think take the craziest face in the world and then plug in Roland Fanning, and then all of a sudden, like, we have mayhem.
Right. I would love to see him go to a school like Vanderbilt that's had, Coach Corbin for 20 years and just like this military style program. And Corbin retires and, goes off and whatever. But then he's a completely different gorilla ball style baseball to Vanderbilt. It'd be so sick.
You know, Vanderbilt would all of a sudden they would start rocking all kinds of swag. We would really see Vanderbilt come out and more as a swag team and stuff like that, a more electric team. But I don't think Vanderbilt can handle that. I don't think Roland Fanning, you can't hire him to go there.
Look, we don't even need to talk about this. This
No, I
was
know
a
we don't,
weird
but
rabbit hole that we just went down. But anyways, last thing I'm gonna say about Austin P is like I hope the committee gets it right. If let's say they win the ASUN tournament, I hope they just have one regional. You just put some of the best offenses in the country in one and just like watch them air it out. Like send them to
they're going to
Tennessee.
Kentucky or Tennessee.
No, Kentucky wouldn't be the ideal spot. I'm talking like send them to Tennessee, send them to Georgia, send them to Duty Noble. Like let's have a home run derby. Throw in like a 2 seed, somebody like Wake Forest is probably going to host, but I'm saying like get 4 offenses that are going to put up 20 runs a game, and we can kind of relive the 2022 Oklahoma State regional where balls were flying over the fence at dangerous speeds.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Should we get back to our topic of discussion? I would say Kentucky, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee are your 4 teams that could be number 1.
Yeah. I mean, don't sleep on North Carolina either. The Tar Heels are flying way under the radar. They've been playing really good baseball. Like a lot of their freshmen are stepping in now. They kind of fit the formula, right? Like they do have a weekend staff that gets people out. Like everybody in their weekend rotation pitches pretty deep. And I mean, they have 4 draft guys that are going to get. I mean, Vance Honeycutt is putting up one of the most low key possible 25 seasons, 25 homers, 25 stolen bases, just because he's getting overshadowed by the 8 other guys across the country that are going to get picked 1 through 8 in the draft. I don't know. Like, I think North Carolina is a dangerous team. They play really, really well at home. I think they've only lost 1 game at home this year, maybe 0. But I wouldn't put them in the number 1. I wouldn't put them in the number 1 category yet, but
pick one. Who's your number 1?
I mean, I think the best team on paper and the best team just throughout the season is probably the Tennessee Volunteers for me. But like Arkansas, I mean, even Kentucky, like resume wise has the number 1 team locked up.
Tennessee,
between RPI, strength of schedule, and all that.
So for Tennessee, I'll tell you, they're 11th in the country in average, 19 in on base percentage, and 2nd in the country in slugging. And then pitching wise on the mound, 386, good for 4th in the country team ERA, 6th in the country in team WHIP, and 3rd in the country in K to walk ratio. They're top 20 across the board in every statistic, offensively and pitching.
Hey, I'll tell you another team, low key, like when healthy, Oregon State. Oregon State, when healthy this year, I think can compete with anybody in the nation and could win a national championship. They went through that like 2-week stretch where they were dealing with arm injuries and they had nobody in the bullpen. But what Travis Bazzana and those guys are doing, Aiden May, through Friday night starter. I've been watching a lot of Oregon State baseball lately, and like they have some studs.
I think like here for example, Kentucky, 92 in the country in average, 45 in on base percentage, 56 in slugging. On the mound, 48th in the country in team ERA, 22 WHIP, 71 K to walk. So okay, winning ball games the most important thing. How you do it doesn't matter. But when you get to the postseason, a lot of teams get exposed for whatever holes they may have.
No, but I want to disagree with you on that. Kentucky is one of those teams, and we saw it this weekend at Florida, right? Like Florida is fighting for their lives, like fighting for their season. Like this was the most must-win series of all time. But when things started like getting down in the mud, Friday's game was getting real chippy. Like both teams were kind of chirping at each other. Kentucky comes back in the 8th and 9th inning, scores 6 runs, ties it, and then goes ahead and wins it in extras. Like that's a type of team that like you can never count out in the postseason. Like they're built for the postseason. It doesn't matter who you're throwing. Like putting up 6 runs against Brandon Neely, like one of the best closers in the country, like that speaks a lot to me. So I'm all in on Kentucky. I think
Okay,
they're a
but
really, really good team.
that's not what that had nothing to do with what I was saying. When you look at the numbers and you see this team is a good team, not statistically speaking, not unbelievable. The postseason usually exposes little holes, and for me, Kentucky walked a decent amount and doesn't strike out a whole bunch of guys. So there's different ways to look at it because then you get, are they getting lucky offensively where guys are on base and guys are hitting a line drive right at somebody, or they're just not cashing them in. You never know. Like I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
I do see what you're saying, Dimitri, because I feel like Kentucky to me is almost like Syracuse during like those incredible basketball runs that like they say they play such a different style of like baseball. Whereas like Syracuse would run that 2-3 at you in March Madness, and like if you didn't shoot well, you were screwed, right? Kentucky can expose a team that is a guerrilla warfare going to hit 15 home runs a weekend, right? But because Kentucky manufactures runs in an old school small ball type of way, but they can also burn you out of the ballpark as well with dudes like Waldschmidt, like they are like really fundamentally sound. So I do think that like they could surprise a lot of teams if you're not on their A game. Like, yeah, if you run into a buzzsaw, like they might be in some trouble. But I'm with you, Ben. I think like when you look at what they've done from start to finish, like I know we've been like, all right, here comes the Kentucky of old. Like they're going to show up and kind of like muff the pooch a little bit. And they just haven't. Like they just continue to play really good baseball.
Yeah. A lot of people were down on Kentucky after they lost that series against South Carolina. But if you remember, like South Carolina had hit back to back to back home runs in the ninth inning just to tie it up, which is like such an anomaly. So like Kentucky could have won that series on the road too. I'm going to ask you guys a question here. Who do you trust more in the postseason, the Kentucky Wildcats or the Georgia Bulldogs?
In the postseason,
Yeah, the postseason.
give me Georgia, the team that can hit a home run with runners on base. I think I would trust Georgia more in the postseason.
Just because of Georgia's offense, right?
I think offense wins in the postseason. The team that can cash in run, the team that can flip a scoreboard in one inning instantly.
Yeah. Look, I've been impressed with Georgia's pitching staff. I don't think the pitching staff is getting nearly enough credit.
Let's look it
Um,
up. Let's look it up.
and and it was like frustrating to see on social media. I tweeted out like, "Hey, go ahead and grab your Georgia plus 3,500 College World Series ticket now because it's about to get cut in half." And people are like, "Oh, we don't trust Georgia's pitching staff. Like, we don't do this and that." This is a completely different pitching staff than the first 20 games of the season. Like, they finally have the rotation. They finally have the bullpen set where, like, sure, they give up some runs, but like you see guys walk into the I forgot they played Florida in the fall on the schedule. Anyways, like you kind of can predict now who they're going to come out of the bullpen. So like all credit to Wes Johnson. Like he took that LSU, like let's piece it together during the first part of the season to figure out who our guys are. And like we're going to run with those guys in the postseason and down the stretch. And like don't look now, but Georgia's like number 2 in the RPI. Like we're looking at a national seed for the Georgia Bulldogs, which like you got to love your chances to get to Omaha there.
I mean, Georgia, 30 in the country in average, 4th in on base, and 3rd in the country in slugging. That means if you face a guy that whether he walks 1 or 2 guys, your slugging is so good, you have a high chance of cashing in those runs, even with 2 out. Man on first, 2 out.
Have you seen what Corey Collins is doing out of the leadoff spot? So Georgia, hits Corey Collins leadoff, and then Condon 2-hole. But Corey Collins like went through a stretch of like 15 at bats where he walked like 6 times, got hit by a pitch 3, and got a hit. So his on base percentage was like 850 during that stretch. And it's like, oh yeah, of course, like you got the best hitter in college baseball on deck. Now you got to pitch to him. You can't pitch around him. So yeah, the on base percentage and slugging, like that's a great formula to see like which teams are going to actually do damage offensively in the postseason.
Dude, Collins is such a funny story because like, I mean, he's a catcher. And if you like judge a book by its cover, like he could not look less like a leadoff hitter. Like he really could. Like he looks like an absolute animale. And he's been number 1 in OBP all season. All season. I just pulled it up. 598. Like that's so stupid. like,
Barry
oh,
Bonds numbers.
why is Condon's like RBI? So the dude that's in front of him is getting on 60% of the time. Like, it's insane. So, but to answer your question though, I've said it a couple weeks back. I actually really like Georgia's bullpen. Like, they don't necessarily have a dude that necessarily scares you on Friday night and Saturday, like with an ace, but their pen has been able
They
to
don't have
plug
Josh Field no more, but
yeah. Hey, dude, biggest Josh Fields fan in the world. That's a different story. But yeah, so to me, like, I think the only question mark is like in Omaha when you line up and you got that motherfucker throwing like on Friday for you. Like, they don't necessarily have that, but man, how cool and good for the game would it be to have him in Omaha, Condon, with that group. With that being said, I'll take Kentucky. I really like Kentucky style of baseball this year. I think is going to be a really healthy reminder to a lot of people that, like, if you play really good defense and you pitch well, and like the way that they manufacture runs like that, it still plays. Like in a year that the home run ball is dominated, like the way that Kentucky wins still plays.
I
For
think
sure.
they're an annoying. I think you're right. I think they're an annoying team. They're a difficult team to match up. They're a difficult team to prepare for. They're a difficult team to game plan. The pitching staff, they're difficult to game plan for. So in that aspect, yes, they're a good team. But I feel like when it comes to the postseason, it's hard to explain what I mean by this. But it's just a different, like, talent wins, offense wins, and winning that moment win. Kentucky, for me, feels like that team that they're one. I think they're really
Yeah.
like, I don't get these Kentucky right. Don't great about them.
Well, no, I don't think you are, because what I'm hearing, like you brought it up like a couple points ago, like Georgia threw up 3 crooked numbers in 3 games this weekend against South Carolina. Carolina, the Gamecocks pretty much controlled those games. It felt like from start to finish. And then Georgia would throw up a 6 spot in the 7th, and you're like, what the hell just happened? So, like, yeah, that's going to win in the postseason every time. But I just get, like, nervous as a fan. Like, I'm waiting for it, and then it never comes. You know what you're going to get out of Kentucky.
They're the dangerous thing. Before you continue, I got to say that they're the dangerous thing about being a team like Georgia. Like, Kentucky can probably manufacture 1 run all 9 innings. So they'll get, their 1 run here, 1 run there, 1. Georgia, the dangerous part of that crooked number never come. It's a really fine line where you have to go. That crooked number doesn't come, they're not a very good team. Kentucky, on the other hand, they can consistently put up 1 run throughout the game and get you 5 or 6 runs over the game. But if they have 1 bad inning on the mound, it's really hard for them to come back.
Yeah.
So it's like these two.
That's exactly
hard to pick.
Could not agree more. Yeah, it's spot on. It's like, what do you feel more comfortable rolling into a dugout with on?
And I'm more comfortable going with the team that can score 5 at any moment.
Yeah. You know what's going to be cool, guys? And I know we spent a lot of time on the SEC in the beginning, but like, it is what it is. Man, each SEC team that's going to make the tournament, they all have like their own identity, right? So between like Georgia, Kentucky, we've already talked about. Arkansas, their identity is like they're going to pitch the hell out of the baseball and like be lights out on the mound and just hope for somebody to make mistakes, walk a few guys, and manufacture runs that way. Arkansas's offense is not great, and until we started tweeting about Mississippi State, winning the series, and then they come back and win. But like Texas A&M, they got the 2-headed dragon between Lord Tubbington, Jace Lavalette, and Braden Montgomery, and then they also have like some freshmen stepping in. A&M also has like the best reliever in the country, which is nice to have. But in Tennessee is like one of the most complete teams. Very veteran, salty vet-led team. Plays with a chip on their shoulder. Really good starting rotation. Like each team has like their own identity. So we'll figure out like which team, whose formula is going to end up actually working in the postseason.
Look at how concerning that offense is.
Yeah, 187 in the country at average, 133 on base percentage, and 145 slugging. Like, yeah, like this Arkansas team is top 5 in ERA, WHIP, and Ks to walk ratio, but not good offensively.
Ooh.
But like as far as like the postseason comes, like you gotta love their chances, right? Like they're gonna hold teams less than 5 runs.
But you got to hit, man, because these teams come hungry. These 2, 3, 4 seeds come hungry, ready to hit. So
Yeah.
it's like pitching. I mean, how many times have we seen it? Some ace starts off the postseason, just can't find the zone. First inning, little jitters, nerves. Dude, these are 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. They're going to get nervous. The moment, not all of them, but the moment sometimes gets you, and it takes a minute to settle in. 35 pitch first inning, 2 walk, 1 blooper, 2-0, freaking Arkansas Little Rock. Hagen Smith throws a 30-35 pitch inning. He can only go 5 innings the rest of the game. Arkansas got a hit. Like it is.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the postseason happens every time.
Arkansas is a prime team for me to throw off game one. Like throw Brady Tiger game one against the 4 seed and just say like, look, if we can't beat, Fairfield or whoever is their 4 seed this year, Little Rock, with our number 2, like we're not winning the College World Series anyways, because you need to save Hagen Smith for that game 2, whether it's, against the 2 seed or a 3 seed. I mean, with their offense, like that's probably the safest approach in my opinion. Like let's throw Brady Tiger, who's also like been dominant this year. It's not like he's a huge step down, but man, I would throw Hagen Smith in that like second game after you win the 4 seed game.
They are two what we just talked about, a prime example of a team like that gives up the bloop and the blast, and then like their offense butthole gets super tight, and then like they can't produce. I could see that team getting bounced in a regional.
Who, Arkansas?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we're still 2 weeks away from our big postseason episode where we just sit there and talk about all these teams like this. So, Ben, where do you want to go from here? Because we've been 30 minutes talking about who's number 1, which I think is important, to be honest. Everybody cares about the number 1 team. So do we.
Yeah. Man, I actually do want to spend like one more little segment on the SEC because like this year, in years past, 13 SEC wins is kind of a coin flip, right? Whether you get in the tournament or not. And this year we're looking at possibly like 4 or 5 teams finishing the regular season with 13 wins, which is going to make Hoover in the SEC tournament like that much more valuable. Because
Hoover is going to be a fucking bloodbath.
Dude, it's crazy. But like what I'm saying is like this is the first time in a long time that there's been like an upper tier, almost a top heavy conference where you have a few teams running away with it and then a few teams at the bottom with like Auburn and Missouri who just can't win games. But between LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, Florida, and Vanderbilt, like those 5 teams are still like technically speaking on recent years, like on the bubble. If you can't win 13 games, like in the SEC, you're probably not getting an at-large bid. But what's interesting is like the NCAA softball committee yesterday comes out and puts all 13 SEC teams in the field of 64. And I know they're 2 different committees, but like they're rewarding the best conference with the most amount of teams. So anyways, between like Florida, Vanderbilt, in fact, let's pull up the SEC standings here just so we can take a quick look. I can do it real quick.
Well, fellas, I got to get out of here.
All right, yeah, Jack and I will talk SEC standings here. Any closing thoughts for you, Dimitri, before you have to run?
What?
Any closing thoughts from you before you have to run?
Damn, I don't have you put me on the spot. I got nervous.
Hey, Rizgat, tell the people where we can watch you play. Is there a way to stream the games? Where can we show some love?
I don't really want people to watch me play.
I do. I hypothetically.
I'll send it to you privately.
Yeah.
No, I don't care. People can watch the finals. That's what the semifinals and finals. But right now it's just like streamed or whatever. But anyway, all right. See you guys later. Have a great podcast. Love you. See ya.
All right, see you, Rizgan. Don't end the stream this time.
Nope.
All right, you did that one time. But anyways, so Jack, we got the SEC standings here. And let me close out of all these little ads on Warren Nolan. They pop up. I click them on accident all the time. But anyway, so you're looking at like Vanderbilt 12-15, Florida 11-16, Alabama 12-15, Ole Miss 11-16, and 10. LSU at 10-17. You look at Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, Arkansas, A&M, Mississippi State. Like barring, I mean, like they're all probably going to be either hosts or, like for example, South Carolina, a lock for a at-large spot. So those 6 teams you don't have to worry about. But then you got 5 down here that are, I mean, they're technically not bubble teams yet, but it's going to get to the point where they're going to be possibly a bubble team. So, like Vanderbilt, they finish up the season 3 games at Kentucky. That's a scary sign for the Commodores, because 12-15, you get swept 18 in the SEC. You're not getting in the tournament unless you make a huge Hoover run. Kentucky's a hard place to play. The magic number, if you can get 14 wins in the SEC, you're going to be an at-large team automatically. 13 is like a coin flip. 12, I don't think anybody's ever gotten in with 12. 12 and 18 does not deserve a postseason. So let's go through this. Like, what are your thoughts on Florida, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Ole Miss, and LSU?
It was one of those conversations that we had with Dimitri. Was like, I feel like I've ripped on Florida a lot. I just feel like the midweek losses, like I haven't been able to evade. I want people to have the same energy that they have for LSU, who's like been wildly disappointed this year, for Florida, right? So like you look at Ole Miss. Ole Miss saves their postseason chances this weekend with a weekend series win against A&M. Like absolutely, Bianco gets himself off the hot seat. Like that was a huge win in Oxford. When you look at the rest of it, you're surprised. I'm really surprised by the drop off of Vanderbilt and like their inconsistency in the later half. But I think like the big conversation is the national championship from a year ago, right? Like, what do you do with LSU and Florida? To me, they're a package deal. If the committee's going to put one in, they have to put the other in my opinion. That's just the way that I look at it. LSU this year, when you look at the Alabama series, if they go win that series, all of a sudden they continue to go on this nice little run to show the committee, hey, we've been playing really well. They lose the series to Alabama this weekend by a run a game on Friday and Sunday. I went and did some math. They've lost 6 SEC games, Ben, this year by 1 run. 6. So
terrible.
And then if you think about, like, there were, I think, 3 Sundays where they got run ruled. So, like, obviously those don't look great, but there have been some really close ball games. They just haven't been able to pull away in late. Whereas when you look at Florida, like when they lose, they get their money's worth. Like they lose. Yeah. So to me, when you look at the full body of work and you really watch these teams play, which I don't think the committee really does, like when you really watch them go to work, like, to me, LSU looks like the deeper team, especially with the emergence of Cam Little and Griffin Herring in the back end. Obviously, we know Brandon Neely's a dog for Florida out of their back end. But like, where are those middle inning guys in their pen? Like, that's where they've struggled this year. So this bottom half of the SEC, like, you're going to need to see Florida and LSU make a serious deep Hoover run, I think, in order to put them in. But like you said, Ben, like the committee has set a precedent of like previous history and putting them in. So I think for that bottom half, like, are they going to be able to ride or die with their fan base into the tournament this year? Because they're about run out of time.
Yeah, 100%. We do have a big weekend matchup, Ole Miss against LSU, and we'll dive into it in the second episode this week. But man, the winner of that series, like if LSU does go 12-18 and Ole Miss does go 12-18, both in the RPIs in the 20s, like, good luck. It might be a who makes it further in Hoover gets in. It would shock me to see 12 SEC teams in, which would be everybody but Missouri and Auburn. But again, like, the committee might just reward strength of schedule and RPI this year. The thing with the committee is every year it's something different. 2019, they were basically picking teams out of a hat, just being like, oh yeah, TCU, with their previous success, I know they're 51 RPI, but like, we're going to throw them in the tournament because they're healthy now. 2021 was kind of a crapshoot too, where they're just picking teams based off of one criteria that doesn't matter. Like last year, for example, they leave out Kansas State and UC Irvine and put in a 12-18 Arizona team. Finished 12-18 in the pack, but they were like, oh yeah, they finished really strong, and people were scratching their heads. So this year it's a brand new committee. I think there's like 1 or 2 remaining guys from last year, but John Cohen, the Auburn AD, was the chairman, and he rewarded Auburn, who was 19 RPI, a regional hosting spot over a team like Campbell, who was 15 RPI. So there is biases. There is a lot of speculate. Like, the thing with the committee is, like, you don't know what they're going to do. they have these meetings early in the year where they lay out criteria, they make it public knowledge, they print out these articles saying like this is what we're looking for. We're going to introduce the KPI ranking this year as well. But at the end of the day, all they do is they have sheets of paper in front of them and they have a table that they sit around and they talk about which teams are deserving. They'll rank the teams 1 through 16. They'll gather the 30 automatic bids, make sure they're in the tournament, and then they just kind of fill it in based off of a highlighter and a pen. Like, oh yeah, I like this team. I
And
like
that
this
tells
team.
you everything they need to know. They use highlighters and pens, not even use
Exactly.
pencils. What a bunch
And
of
they can use pencils. Yeah, it's like they'll highlight the teams that they think will be a good at large, and they might miss on somebody. Like they legit. What's funny about the committee? It's probably so easy to give them bad information. Like
Yeah.
if I'm LSU, if I'm an LSU baseball fan and I'm good at like hacking computers, not hacking computers, but like hacking websites or like
Yeah.
whatever. Like nobody's gonna know. Like nobody in the committee is gonna know if LSU lost 2 out of 3 against Auburn this year or whatever, or Missouri. Um, you can go in and just change the results, print off a piece of paper and hand it to them, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, they've won 4 SEC series when in reality they've only won 3." Right?
What's the,
Like you can mess with the committee by printing off wrong pieces of paper.
how do we get you on the committee? What's the criteria?
I think they're all athletic directors, so I would have to go be the athletic director of Maryland Eastern Shore
Ooh.
and apply. But yeah, I mean, I can pull it up, the list of committee members. Um, let's see.
Yeah.
Let me stop sharing this screen, and I will share this screen here in a second. But yeah, they have. Oop, that's the wrong one.
Hey, while you're looking that up, I do have some thoughts on our SEC conversation. I meant to say it earlier, then we jumped right in. I want to see how crazy SEC fans are. This is a shout out. Do you guys remember DH Gate and AliExpress? And you'd go buy the knockoff Looney Tunes jersey from Space Jam or like an old school Mighty Ducks jersey, and you'd get weird. I need you guys to get weird about these home field apparel jersey pullovers. These pullovers are the real deal. And to your point, man, like we're gonna have hundreds of people being like, "Yo, do Troy next, do Oklahoma State next, do Texas next, do." You want to know the best way to make sure that your team goes next? Go buy a hat, go buy a pullover, because to me, like those LSU jersey pullovers that just came out, like you'd be nuts to not go buy the old school piece. So, man, that's gonna be sick. It is very DHK like reminiscent or adjacent. So. Let's see how weird SEC Nation is for those who hate our SEC talk.
Right.
Shut us up. Goodbye, pullover.
All right. I cannot find that. I'll find it here later in the episode. But yeah, I mean, it's public knowledge who the committee members are and like what they're looking for as far as criteria to get in. All I'm saying is it could be so easy where if you're an intern for the NCAA and you're an LSU fan, or if you're I don't know, another bubble team fan, you just print off, like you could Photoshop and print off LSU being 14 and 16 in the SEC, and they would have no idea. Like they would literally, they're going off the papers in front of them. They come in with very little outside knowledge, and they sit around a table and they just compare this team versus this team, and it's very, very funny how it works. There is no BCS formula that gets teams in. It's just dudes talking around a table. Anyways, yeah, so it's SEC talk there. Obviously, the ACC had some fireworks this weekend. Wake Forest comes out, a team that we talked about last episode that like we don't trust. They're so potent, right? Like when they win in the most exciting and like just a way that you're like, this team is full of superstars. Chase Burns, 16 strikeouts against the number 2 team in the country, Clemson. He goes sicko mode. He goes crazy. Social media 50-50 on that. Like some guys loved it, some guys hated it. But started off the weekend great. And then yesterday, like Seaver King comes up clutch and wins a game for him there. So a sweep over the number 2 team in the country, Clemson Tigers at home. I mean, we're looking at Wake Forest not only pretty much locking up a host spot with their RPI, but battling for that top 8 national seed. So that was big. Florida State dropping a series at Pitt was the most head-scratching thing. And I know you and I both invested Florida State game 1, right? lost a couple parlays for us. But man, when Jamie Arnold goes out there and strikes out 17 Pitt Panthers on the road and you get shut out is just crazy to me. They end up losing game 2 as well, drop the series, but then boom, the Bats heat up game 3. They win like 18-3, something like that. Man, that was crazy because Florida State, they lose another series, like they might drop out of the hosting picture, which is not good. Not good for the Cinnamon Rolls.
For a team that started off the season undefeated, like I won the last 3, that was shocking. Like I felt like they've hung their hat on offense all year, and like it just completely disappeared. This was the ultimate weekend in the ACC. If you're an ACC fan, to go, wow, there is an insane amount of parity in our league. Like the one consistent that's been North Carolina doesn't lose at home. Like they continue this like little run of dominance. But to watch Georgia Tech offense constantly clap back against Duke, like they just kept throwing crooked number jabs at each other all weekend. It was like whose just offense is going to be in the box last. It's exactly what happened in that series. So kudos to Georgia Tech. The Wreckham report was really fun to keep up with this weekend, as there was a couple bonkers plays. But then when you look at Wake, what they've done, we were talking number 1 talk. They've got 16 losses overall. They're 11-12 against quad 1 teams. They're 9th right now in the RPI. I don't see 1 or 2. Like I think there's no one that's standing in front of them from a pitching standpoint when you get to the ACC tournament. They go win the ACC tourney. Like to me, they're already a national host with like what they've done the last couple weeks. But they go make a run in the ACC tournament. Like you might have to make them like a top 4, top 3 team, like depending on what happens. But man, the ACC was drunk this weekend. The Florida State loss was brutal. But there was some head scratchers for sure. NC State's roller coaster season continues. Like,
hey, I'll tell you this about NC State. Like,
did you tweet out their weekend series wins this year? Because it's nuts. They're loaded.
Dude, they have weekends. So they're the most here. I'll share my screen here. Like they're the most regional ready team out of anybody. And maybe super regional is the word I'm looking for. But let's look at NC State. You know, they're 29-19 overall, like nothing crazy, 7-12 on the road. But you look like 15-11 in conference, right? They go and like sweep Boston College, lose a midweek. They get swept by Georgia Tech, then they win the midweek over Coastal Carolina. So at this point in the season, like I remember on the pod, we were just like, dude, who is this NC State team?
Yeah.
Like what's going on? They win 2 out of 3 against Duke. They sweep Notre Dame, then they lose the midweek. They get swept by Louisville. It's like, what? You get swept by Louisville? Like that's one of your weekend series losses? Lose a midweek. And it's like, okay, we're going to beat Clemson 2 out of 3, lose the midweek to Campbell. We're going to beat North Carolina 2 out of 3. We're going to lose a midweek to East Carolina. Obviously, Ball State doesn't matter. They sweep Ball State, but they lose a midweek to UNCW. They split with Florida State 1-1, and then they beat Virginia 2 out of 3 on the weekend. So it's like they have this pattern of like beating these top 15 teams on the weekend and then losing the midweek. So like that's why their RPI is in the 20s. But as far as like winning weekend series, this NC State team is really freaking good. And I think the committee might look at it and be like, wow, you know, they have 4 wins, 4 weekend series wins over top 15 teams. Like we're going to give them a hosting spot. So like that was one of the teams. And obviously if this was anybody else but NC State, I would feel like the NCAA would reward them with a hosting spot. But we have to remember the NCAA and NC State baseball have been on bad terms recently, missing out on the tournament one year that they deserved it. The COVID thing in 2021 where they had to forfeit a game. So who knows? It's NC State. But I think they're deserving of a hosting spot just because of what they're doing in the weekends. And those midweeks, people say don't matter. They really do, because that's putting them at a 20 RPI instead of like probably 10 or 11.
They're the old coach cliche, rising and falling to the level of your competition. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
It's insanity. And with Wake Forest at home this weekend, you beat Wake Forest after the Demon Deacons have just been like steamrolling dudes. Like you have no choice to let them be a host. Now we know, I mean, they won't. Maybe the NCAA is just like, I don't know what happened. Like maybe the Wolfpack mascot like slept with like the committee member's like wife or something, but I don't know. But there's some bad blood for sure. You look at Virginia, you're not worried. Like, they'll be fine. They're a walking super team. But, like, what's the committee going to do with teams like Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, like that middle pack? Like, what do you put them in, right? Like, Louisville's another borderline team, but the RPI says that they don't belong. But Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech are kind of right there on the cusp as well.
Look, I'm worried about Virginia Tech, and the reason why they're 3-10 in Quad 1 games. I know they have a 14-13 ACC record, but look who they have to finish up with. Like at Virginia, I mean, we're looking at they lost 2 out of 3 to a Miami team that had nothing to play for. Lose 2 out of 3 to North Carolina. Lose 2 out of 3 to Duke. Lose 2 out of 3 to Georgia Tech. Get swept by Wake Forest. You called it, Jack. At the end of March, you were like, "Hey, we're gonna look at this this Virginia Tech team and be like, wow, they're 11-2 in the ACC. Like they're really good." Well, they started out with Notre Dame, Louisville, Boston College, and Pitt, and they have not won a weekend series since. You know, losing to Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, Duke, North Carolina, Miami, which was like a must-win series for them at home. They lose that series, and now you got to go to Virginia. Like I think Virginia Tech is on the outside, big time right now. Like they are not going to get in the tournament. Meanwhile, like Georgia Tech, you know, they kind of started out really slow, but we go down here, they win 2 out of 3 against Duke. The Clemson series at Clemson, not very many teams are going to win at Clemson this year. But before that, like Miami win 2 out of 3, Virginia Tech win 2 out of 3, Virginia and Virginia Tech, they win 2 out of 3. Pitt, they win 2 out of 3. So like they have way more recent. Georgia Tech has way more recent ACC wins, series wins. Now they finish up against Mercer. Mercer's been trash lately. That's a completely different story. But at Florida State, if Georgia Tech can win that Florida State series, like lock for the tournament, 100% lock. If they don't get swept, though, they have a path where if they win a few games in Charlotte for the ACC tournament, they should feel very comfortable. So, like right now, I think the Georgia Tech over Virginia Tech over Louisville debate, I think Georgia Tech has the best chance to get in.
Okay. I like that. I don't really know how to feel. I think it almost feels like one of those 3 teams like has to go be a bid stealer. Like they have to go win in Charlotte or at least get to a semi or a championship round where like then the committee's like, well, man, then it's complete recency bias because I just go back to like, would you rather have Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Louisville over LSU, Florida, Ole Miss, right? Like it would be tough. I would just think from a Vegas lines perspective, like what would that line look like? It'd be astronomical, right? So
right. Well, yeah, I mean, and obviously Duke is sitting at a 22 RPI, but they don't have a game lead on Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and Louisville. So, like Duke is not in trouble by any means, but we're talking about 2 months ago. We were saying this is the best team in the country. A lot of baseball outlets were saying Duke is the best team in the country. They have slowed down a lot, but I bring that up because they could be that team that is the true hot, cold, hot theory. And Duke wins the series this week. They win the ACC tournament. Like look out! Like this, we've said it. This is an Omaha caliber team. They've just been disappointing recently.
Yeah, their pen's really good. Charlie Bielenson has returned to being one of the best closers in baseball. Like they have to throw to the caliber of how deep their pen really is.
Right. But yeah, I mean, for the ACC, I think Clemson is a lock to host. North Carolina a lock to host. You think Florida State should be there, right? Like Florida State and Wake Forest are 2 teams that, you know, on paper right now, you're like, oh yeah, of course they'll host. But you know, another slip up from one of those 2 teams, it probably pushes them out of the hosting picture. So I think the ACC will get 4 hosts, a possible 5th if you know a team like NC State goes on a deep run in Charlotte, maybe wins it or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a competitive conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like each and every week, it's similar to the ACC or similar to the SEC, where you know you see upsets of weekend series.
Speaking of weekend upsets, do we want to dive into some of the mid-majors scuffling a little late?
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean,
let's talk East Carolina. We're here, right? Dude, who would have thought that they would go 0-4 last week? You know, midweek against Duke and then on the road at Tulane. They get swept. RPI didn't hurt that bad. They're still sitting at 12. Still looking at a host, but this is a team we were like, oh yeah, they should absolutely lock up a top 8 national seed. And it wasn't even like I watched the game on Saturday and Sunday, or sorry, Friday and Sunday. I watched some of that game. Tulane has a really good ESPN Plus broadcast that I enjoy listening to, but man, it wasn't like East Carolina made these crazy boneheaded plays. It was a combination between Tulane ready for the moment. Like they came out fiery.
Yeah.
They were exciting to watch, but like East Carolina just felt like they were not comfortable. Like they weren't playing the same style baseball that we're used to seeing them play at home. And this is the second time this year.
Yeah.
A tough place to play at UTSA. They lose that weekend series about a month ago. And it was the same story. Like they just didn't look comfortable not on their home field. So it'll be interesting. Let's see what East Carolina is on the home or at home versus on the road this year. So 23-4 at home for East Carolina, 13-9 on the road. And a lot of those road losses were against the UTSAs. Let's see, they lost at Campbell. They lost
North Carolina and that home
2 against UTSA. Lost 1 to FAU. And they lost 3 at Tulane. So they finished up the year Campbell midweek, Rice weekend series. Yeah, but I mean, like the hosting, like it's up in the air now. Like if East Carolina doesn't win the, conference tournament, like there will be a debate whether they deserve to host or not because they haven't really proven it on the road this year. But anyways, I still believe in this East Carolina team. I think they are Omaha caliber. They just need a home regional for sure, and then a possibly a home super. Maybe they get lucky and there's an upset in the other super. I don't know. I think they're good enough to make it to Omaha. Shoot, I think they're good enough to win it. I think they're good enough to win it all. I think there's about 24 teams that I went through last week. It might change a little bit now, but I think there's only about 24 teams that can win it all this year. And the rest, obviously would take some type of miracle run.
Yeah. They're a team where like the jungle has treated him so well. The jungle's so good for college baseball that like we've just become accustomed to, kind of like when we talk about like Virginia feels like a walking super regional team. Like the jungle is going to host a regional this year. Now the question then becomes like, well, they're no longer a national seed, in my opinion. Like they even if they go and run the table. But to me, like I feel like this common trend, like this is going to be a bid stealer, right? Like UTSA or Tulane is going to go win that conference tournament, right? It just kind of feels evident that like East Carolina, like not that they don't feel the pressure to have to go and win a conference tournament like they may have used to in the past, but is it not kind of like incidental that UTSA and Tulane have like beat them at a neutral site? So like to me, like a Wichita State who's raked this year, kind of sniffing and breathing down the necks of everyone at the top of the conference, like they could go in a conference tourney and go hang a couple cookery numbers on an East Carolina in like a semi-regional matchup or a semi-final matchup, and then all of a sudden like one of those SEC teams is going to be boned because you're going to get 100 RPI Tulane that sneaks in or something.
Yeah, I mean you're spot on, dude. The American tournament's going to be nuts because look at this conference standings. Like the worst team in the conference has 9 conference wins. Between 3rd place and 10th place is a 4-game difference. But look at all these 11 and 13 teams, 13 and 11. Even South Florida 10 and 4. Like we came into the season with high expectations for the Bulls of South Florida. So yeah, I mean the American tournament is going to say a lot. I still expect East Carolina to win it, win the tournament. But right now, like if you're East Carolina, you got to win the regular season first because you have a game lead over UTSA, but they have the tiebreaker. So let's see, who does East Carolina have left? Rice at home. UTSA has at FAU. So obviously, you have to like East Carolina's chances to at least match what UTSA because at FAU is a tough place to play.
Yeah.
At home against Rice. But like let's say East Carolina wins 2 out of 3 and UTSA sweeps at FAU, UTSA would be the 1 seed and win the tiebreaker over East Carolina. So just something to monitor with that Tulane sweep.
Get weird, man. Get weird.
obviously like Austin P, Stetson, Florida Gulf Coast, Jacksonville, Kennesaw State, like all 5 of those teams in the ASUN have just been back and forth all year.
Yeah.
Only a game and a half difference between 1st and 5th place. The ASUN's been a lot of fun to follow. Oh, this is a topic I wanted to talk about earlier in the episode, but I forgot. 21-6 in the Big 12 is the Oklahoma Sooners. I know their RPI is at 15. But would it be the craziest thing in the world for the committee to reward them with a top 8 national seed? And we'll have the same conversation with Oregon State here in a second. But to win the Big 12, they have a 3.5 game lead over second place Oklahoma State. To win the Big 12 in this fashion, a power conference, right? A very deep conference. You have Texas Tech sitting there in 10th place, so very deep conference. Would it be the craziest thing for Oklahoma to get a national seed? Because I think they deserve it, dude. 9-5 against quad 1. You can only beat the teams on your schedule. And 21-6 in this conference is nuts.
Yeah. They outside of like, and even go back to like this weekend series loss to Texas where like game 3, the rubber match is cut short due to like weather late that night. So they didn't even finish that game. Yeah, but like, do they scare you? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much of that plays
They
in.
do scare me. Like, as far as a weekend goes, like a regional weekend, I
Yeah.
think Oklahoma is very deep. And I think they do play I mean, they play Skip Johnson baseball, right? Like,
Right.
hard nosed doesn't. I mean, very similar to Kentucky. They don't have any of these like superstars that are putting up 25 homers in a year. They don't have anybody throwing 100 miles an hour out of their bullpen. But like what they have is a bunch of guys that are. I mean, they're dirt bags. Like they're
Yeah.
guys that love baseball. They play hard and they play fast and they take advantage of mistakes. And like other than that weekend sweep where out of nowhere Lamar sweeps Oklahoma
Yeah.
in the middle of conference play, dude, they've been flawless like pretty much all year.
They do
So
remind me a lot of that 22 team that like I didn't think anything of. Then they sneak through the regional and then they go and beat Virginia Tech in Blacksburg when VT like had all the magic in the world. So like it is a team that might fly under the radar and like
let me tell you about that 2022 Oklahoma team.
Ugh.
They had one of my favorite college players of all time,
Who?
Peyton Graham, the shortstop.
Oh, yeah.
He was unbelievable, like one of the most underrated college baseball players of all time. And but they were similar to TCU last year. They caught fire at the end of the year. They were a 2 seed in a regional. They ended up winning that regional with like Florida and Liberty and those teams. And then they go to Blacksburg and win that super and then make this run to Omaha behind Cade Horton, who was a nobody.
Yeah.
Cade Horton was a nobody in February for this Oklahoma Sooners team. And he leads them to the College World Series final against Ole Miss. And ended up making millions of dollars off of that. Gets drafted like 18th overall or something. But
Yeah.
man, I don't think Oklahoma is that style team of 2022. I think they did have more star power on that team, and a little bit more reliable, like superstar type players. But man, I think Oklahoma needs to be rewarded just because week in and week out in the Big 12, they're taking care of business. Now, let's talk about most dangerous team in the Big 12. All right, you want to talk most dangerous? A team that can make a run like TCU did last year?
Randy Mazey.
It's the West Virginia. It's the West Virginia Mountaineers.
Randy Mazey last year. They've got that Coastal Carolina Garrett Gilmore in his final season. Randy Mazey, who's like kind of taken a West Virginia baseball program who like no one not gave a damn about, but like have turned them into a national like conversation of like, oh, this isn't just like a football school anymore. And JJ Weatherholt looks so back. Like
Dude, when he is in the lineup and doing what he's doing right now, this is a easy top 25 team in the country. Sometimes you think like, man, they could be a top 10 team in the country, like by the way they're playing. And he missed a lot of time, with that hamstring injury. But going into this season, he was a number 1 prospect out of all of these guys. He was, number 1 over Hagen Smith, Chase Burns, Caglione, Condon, Bazana. Like MLB.com rated him as the number 1 guy because of what he did last year. And they get him back, I believe, right after this Texas Tech series, and they sweep Baylor. They actually did lose 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati, but dominate. They're scoring double-digit runs a game, And this weekend series at TCU will tell me everything I need to know about West Virginia.
Yeah.
If they go into Fort Worth and win that series and possibly eliminate TCU from at-large territory, and we'll dive into that in a second because I still believe in TCU. But if West Virginia goes to TCU this week and wins the series, like I might put a wager, an investment on West Virginia to get to Omaha because they kind of feel like that team that is, breathed a second life and are about to get really hot. The pitching staff's really good. They do have a good bullpen, and they kind of have that storyline that we always look for in college baseball. Randy Mazey, who absolutely built this West Virginia program. They hosted a regional in 19 with Alec Manoa as the number one guy. There's a cool picture online that we tweeted where he's looking out on this like dirt. Coach Randy Mazey is looking out on this dirt field, or like they're playing club softball or something, and they build it into this giant stadium right there in Morgantown. It's sick. So I think West Virginia would be my pick as far as a Big 12 team to make a surprise run. But like, let's not count out TCU now. TCU sitting at 38 in the RPI. Their quad 1, 4-10 is not good, but this is a team that was, coming into the season, I think ranked number 3 or 4 in the country, and they have a pretty easy path. The sweep against Baylor, they won 2 out of 3 against Kansas State. They won that huge midweek game against Dallas Baptist. They finish up at home with Baylor in a midweek, which the committee will look at that as a conference win, just because that's what they've done in the past, even though it's a midweek. And then you get West Virginia at home. If they can finish the year, let's see, they are 13-14 in conference. If they can finish 15-15 in the conference, they're getting an at-large bid. Like, the committee will look at TCU and say, like, this team is super talented. This team underachieved all year, but they did enough to get in. And look, I don't want TCU as a 3 seed in the regional. If I'm anybody, like, it doesn't matter if they're going to Oregon State or if they're going to Arkansas. Like, I don't want TCU as a 3 seed.
Can you imagine like busting your tail a year to get a 2 and like you're a surprise team and then you got to run into Peyton Tolley on that Friday day game? Like, that'd be so stupid.
Also, I heard a rumor that maybe Peyton Tolley, like somebody in Peyton Tolley's family passed away. I don't remember who it was, but that's why he missed that Friday start this week. So thoughts and prayers out to them in that family. Always tough to hear players losing family members. But, I think TCU could be dangerous in the postseason. Look, there's 2 teams sitting here in 5th and 6th place in the Big 12 that nobody, I guess maybe not nobody. People were hyped up on Kansas's number 1 junior college transfer class coming into this year. But 15-12, like, that's something to be proud of if you're a Kansas Jayhawk fan. 65 in the RPI, so you have to do some work this last weekend and in the Big 12 tournament. But the team right above them, the Cincinnati Bearcats, 16-11. 16-11 in that 53 RPI spot. And like, dude, they've done enough, in my opinion, to deserve an at-large bid. And they finish up with a strong strength of schedule the last 4 games, all at home, but UConn and then Oklahoma. If they go 2-2, all I'm asking is 2-2 out of this Cincinnati team. Man, I think you can lock them in for a postseason berth. Like, they've done enough. They win 2 out of 3 against West Virginia, 2 out of 3 against UCF, 2 out of 3 against Houston. They did get swept at Oklahoma State, but they sweep to you the week before that. They get a big midweek game against Xavier that they win. Like, I'm telling you, like, Cincinnati, I believe it was 2019, made this miracle run out of the American Conference tournament. They're in I think they're a 4 seed at Oregon State or somebody that, like, Michigan ended up winning that regional. But like, Cincinnati was one of those teams that was like, why aren't they good at baseball? Like, they have a recruiting hotbed all around them. And now that they're in the Big 12, I could see this team becoming like an upper tier Big 12 team once Texas and Oklahoma leaves. Like, I think, man, they get the coaching staff that comes down from Central Michigan, and they play a fast, fun style of baseball. And guess what? Their pitchers throw strikes, which is huge.
Lots of them.
So a 2-2 week out of Cincinnati, man, I think that they would lock up a postseason berth.
I like it. Big 12's weird.
Yeah, Big 12 is really weird. Texas is a fun team too. 7-3 in their last 10, but 12-9 in quadrant 1 games. So another team that I think it's safe to say they play up or down to their competition. And man, dude, 17-10 in the Big 12 right now with Kansas left at home, coming off a big road series win at UCF. And Texas, I know they won't host, but like they're going to be happy as a 2 seed wherever they go.
I staged that question. Do you think is Jalen Flores their shortstop that looks just like Carlos Correa? Is he a top 3 shortstop in baseball? Like who like if you had to just off the top of your head, top 3 shortstops. I mean, I know obviously Weatherholt, but like he kind of plays.
I don't think so. Well, let's see. What did D1 baseball rank him as far as shortstops when they came out? Let's see. And they've been coming out with these rankings for each position. Man, I look at him as a guy that like I trust and I think will have a good pro career. But let's see what. I mean, he's fun to watch. Don't get me wrong, and like super talented.
Any good ones? I was watching him against UCF, and I was like, dude, this guy like. I mean, he just moves like a big leaguer. You know what I mean? Like he.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, like off the top of my head, I do like Silva for TCU. I think he's a very underrated player. Probably on par.
Yeah.
I mean, probably on par there. I can't think of any shortstops off the top of my head right now. Oh, dude, there's a guy for Rutgers that's really good, Josh Corda Gardner or whatever. I forget his name. Oh, wait, no. Hold on. I just thought of like 3 or 4 shortstops. Hold on. Like Kyle DeBarge, I think is.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll talk about Kyle DeBarge here from Louisiana in a second because I actually went to the weekend series. He might be the number 1 shortstop picked, other than the number 2 shortstop behind Weatherholt. In this country, like he's a first round pick in my head. Also, like the who's the guy? Kansas State, Kalen Culpepper.
Culpepper's the dog.
Who's the guy for Virginia that's been there for a long time?
Super
athletic. Yeah, O'Farrell. I would put ahead. The guy for Arkansas, the Hawaiian, Aloy. He's a stud.
Yeah. There's a bunch of. He's at the top of that list, though, for me. Like, he long, wiry kid, crazy pop, like, defends the position well. I think he's, like, in that conversation, though.
Yeah. I would put it's definitely Weatherholt 1, Kyle DeBarge 2, in my opinion.
So, dude, I was going to ask you. There were 2 things that I can't believe we've now gone an hour 15 you haven't brought up yet. Last weekend, I know we're done with SEC talk, but last weekend you said that, hey, is there going to be an opportunity for me to like get back on the horse on my South Carolina take? Well, that happened pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then, dude, I want to hear about Zen Mountain. I want to hear about Georgia Southern. You got there this weekend. You're like, dude, Georgia Southern feels like a sneaky team to make a run in this tourney. And then outside of that too, like the Cajuns are the real deal. I want to hear about the experience, bro.
Yeah, dude, it was an awesome experience. So, yeah, we'll start with Georgia Southern, just right down the road from me. I wanted to see this Cajun team in person. I watch a lot of their broadcasts because I think they do have an A+ ESPN broadcast. Announcers are great. Camera work looks good. Always a good environment there at the Teague. But, you can only see so much on TV. Like, for me, if you can see a team in person, you can look in the players' eyes, look in the coaching staff's eyes, and like watch them take BP and in and out and things like that. And just like how they carry themselves off the field. Dude, I can't put into words like how impressed I am with that coaching staff. Gunnar Leger, like one of the younger pitching coaches in the country. He was in my graduating class, I believe. And like I knew about him at Mercer because he was an All-American, gritty guy, like hard-nosed, gritty guy. Looks super young, but he's got like that old Coach Robichaux like persona about him, where like he walks into a room and you're like, oh, this guy's a big deal. So like him handling the pitching staff was really neat to see. I talked to Coach Deggs for a while, and like he's a guy that like immediately after meeting him, second time in person. The first time I don't think he remembers, but like he was recruiting a lot of my junior college teammates while he was at Sam Houston. He didn't recruit me. Biggest mistake of his life. I'll say that right now. But him and I talked for a while. And then, closer to game time, like I'm standing down there, like near the bullpen watching guys, and the security team comes and like tries to kick me out. Or I mean, not tries to kick me out, but he's doing his job, right? Like, hey, are you part of the team? Like, no, sir, I'm not. I'm just down here watching. All right, well, will you go make your way to the stands? Like, and Coach Deggs whips around from the bullpen and goes, no, he's with us. Like, just a super, like Ben's with us. And like, let me watch the pitchers warm up and all this stuff. So that was cool to see. But I'm talking about one of the most impressive college baseball players that I can remember in Kyle DeBarge. He is somebody that whoever drafts him is getting an absolute dog. And I'm talking about not only like the way he's a leader on that team, like the guys follow him around and do what he does before the game. Um, and he's not like this intimidating looking guy, right? He's maybe 5'10, 180 pounds. Like I don't know his height and weight, but dude, like just muscles on muscles. Like he's got giant forearms and like giant calves. Like he walks around in shorts before the game, and you're like, dude, this guy, like he looks the part. And then sure enough, like with his rubber band swing, just fast twitch, he puts the ball 500 feet to left field in the second inning, and you're just like, oh my God. And then he like one ups that with a ball deep in the hole, like almost behind where the third baseman was playing, and just unleashes like a 95-mile-an-hour ball to first base, gets the guy by a step. And it's like, I've been around first rounders. Like I've seen a lot of first round talent, being around the game of college baseball like the last 10 years. Dude, the kid is it. Like he is what you want in a first round draft pick because he's not going to fizzle away on his own. Like the mental side is there, the physical attributes are there, and the athleticism. Like everything he does is just like, wow, this kid's an athlete. So I came away very impressed with this Louisiana team. I know the RPI is like in the 40s, which is just it's a dog eat dog world down there in the SunBelt. But like they won't host a regional, but you like if they get sent to Mississippi State as a 2 seed, I would be scared if I was a Mississippi State fan. Like this team is getting better. They don't care if they play at home or on the road. And they swept a Georgia Southern team that was 15-9 coming into the weekend. So, and then one more thing, I'm just walking around the concourse, right? Going to my seat. I look to my right, like look who who else would I see other than the baseball bat bros? Like the
Yeah.
biggest YouTube channel, like in the baseball world right now. Will Taylor, sitting right next to me, and obviously he knew about the 11.7 brand, but it was like for him it was cool to see like a face behind the Twitter account. He doesn't listen to the pod. He doesn't really like consume a lot of college baseball content other than the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, where his brother plays second base for him, John Taylor. But it was like, he was such a down to earth, genuine guy, really really cool, and man, he's been blowing up. Like I was watching his videos when he had 100 subscribers. Now he's got like 500,000. But just a real, like, if you ever see Will, the baseball bat bro, uh, like in person, whether he's in Omaha or regional or whatever, like go up there and talk to him. Like he is a normal college baseball guy that got done playing and just turned it into something really cool. Like super good guy. He'll talk to you. He's a good talker. Like he'll talk for hours.
I love that.
And that was fun. So it was a great experience there in Statesboro. And man, I'm a big believer in this Louisiana Raging Cajuns team.
Yeah, you called it, man. I was not. I was cynical towards it just because at that point in the season, I was like, oh, there's so many damn good teams, but they just all eating each other. Like it's been parasitic in a sense that like they're not going to get a host. You were right. I was wrong. Damn it. But like, it's just such a bummer because kind of like when you look at the Big 12, like OU and Oak State, obviously with OU's Big 12 record, like you're like, oh, they're a no doubt host. But like the same thing in the Sun, but like nothing really stands out and like slaps you in the face as like a bona fide like host site because they've just all eaten each other. And it's like that Sunbelt tournament to me is the same thing like that we kind of talked about with the American. Like it's going to be someone we didn't expect to win it. Right. And it's going to take, like, I don't know, like, could it be a James Madison when we talked about the Cajuns and Troy and Coastal? Like, it's going to be someone we haven't been talking about all year. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Georgia Southern team go win the SunBelt tournament. But it is a bummer that one of those like schools isn't going to get the host because they are such like electric atmospheres. Southern Miss just keeps flying under the radar. They're like a couple games back of win the damn with Troy kind of getting eliminated this weekend, but it's wild, man.
Yeah, like Southern Miss and Louisiana. Those are two teams like over the past decade. It's like, oh, we can doubt them all we want, or like we can pick holes in each one of them. But at the end of the day, they're going to be at the top of the Sun Belt standings. Like they are the programs. They are pristine. Like they know what they're doing over there, right? What's impressive to me out of the Sun Belt is like Louisiana is 21-6. Like they have a legitimate shot to go 24-6 in conference play. Southern Miss, like a team that has had postseason damage over like the last 5 years, seeing super regionals, going to regional finals. Man, Southern Miss is kind of putting it together where it's like, wow, like maybe they are a upper tier top 25 talented team. And they do have a series win over Indiana State, which is like huge right now because Indiana State is looking at like a hosting spot. But for me, like for Southern Miss, there's two things that can make them a deep postseason run. One, you got to figure out the bullpen. It feels like they have two guys carrying that pitching staff, which in the past has kind of been the case, but not really. They've always had like back end bullpen guys to shut the door. If they can find those pieces, they can make a deep postseason run. And like I've been impressed with the offense. Southern Miss has never really been, other than like the 2017 team with like Matt Wallner and some of those guys, they've never really been like this big slugging team that can rely on a home run. They
Right.
kind of have that this year. Like they have a few guys in the middle of the order, like Pato and those guys that can hit the long ball. So it's going to be a different path for them. Usually, like they're used to hosting regionals or going down the road to like LSU. But the committee might send them over to, I don't know, like a Florida State or like maybe send them over to a Clemson regional, something like that, where they're not fighting against a upper tier SEC team in a regional. So anyways, like I do think that between Troy, Southern Miss, Louisiana, I think they're all three going to get in the postseason with Coastal Carolina, who's like down pretty far in the standings. But like Coastal could be the most like national championship worthy team. You know what I mean? Like they could, if you had to rank those four, like who could actually win the College World Series, Coastal might be the answer just because of how like they at times have shown really good pitching and like an unbelievable offense. They also have the storyline of like Gillies last year, which storylines do play in college baseball. They always seem to work out. But Coastal needs to keep fighting for just a large spot. The RPI is there, but when you're like 8th in your conference, 7th in your conference,
No good luck.
that committee will look at that.
Not a good
They have played a very tough schedule though. So anyways, like if you want to take some flyers on some mid-major teams or non-power 5 teams to make it to Omaha, I think you look immediately to the Sun Belt, and I think you look immediately to the Big West, because like what UC Santa Barbara and UC Irvine are doing in the Big West is also like on par with what the Sun Belt's doing right now.
They are exactly who we thought they were, and their path will be a lot cleaner being out on the West. But like the Gauchos, like after kind of the Gauchos remind me so much of like what we talked about with like Northeastern, probably a little bit more on my end, just what I've seen. But like they've like really figured out of late.
For sure. Dude, this is going to be such a good year for the non-power 5 teams, because in years past, you kind of look to like Conference USA, you look at like the American, I guess the Sun Belt up until last year, the Sun Belt was really not like this power baseball conference. Like they had some good teams, but they bring in a Southern Miss and a Coastal Carolina and a few other like good teams to like really round out that conference. But man, this year, like the CAA has got some Omaha caliber teams. Like Charleston wins 2 out of 3 against Northeastern, and like Charleston's hitting the shit out of the ball too. We already know about their pitching staff. Northeastern is kind of on that at-large bubble, but we've seen them play super good at points this year. But then you look up at the standings, it's like, oh, UNCW's in first place, and like they are Mr. Consistent, and they won the conference last year. And so like the CAA, between the CAA and like those 3 teams, the SunBelt has 4 teams. The Big West has 2, like 2 elite teams in Irvine and Santa Barbara. And then like Conference USA has Dallas Baptist and Louisiana Tech, who Louisiana Tech goes and sweeps first place Western Kentucky this week in dominating fashion. So it's like we're getting to pick from 5 non-power 5 conferences that have multiple teams deserving to get in. Meanwhile, like East Carolina sitting over there in the American, which is another team that is Omaha caliber. Man, I just think this year is going to get super messy in the postseason.
Gonna get
Like
so awesome.
we're not going to see 5 SEC teams, 2 ACC teams, and a Big 12 team in College
Hell,
World Series.
I think over 1.5 mid-major teams, I'll take the over in Omaha. I really do. I think we find a way to get to it.
Yeah, I also think we're going to see more than 5. I think we're going to see more than 5 non-power 5 teams in super regionals. Like I'm looking at 6 to 7 that I think could make it to a super,
Agree.
which like they might not win the super regional, but like getting to a super as a mid-major is like every mid-major's goal. Like, I'll tell you, like at Mercer, my junior year at Mercer, they were coming off of a regional appearance at Florida State where they played pretty well in the regional. They lost 2 one-run games. And in our preseason meeting, the coaching staff's like, guys, like we have to make the next step to a super. We had the best player in the country, Kyle Lewis. A lot of hype around this team, returning a lot of guys from that regional team the year before. But we weren't focused on Omaha. Like we were focused on like let's get to the next step of making a super regional, because you see like these mid-major teams once they make a super, like the program changes forever. You get much better recruits, more money pouring in from donors and stuff that maybe care about football only. They want to see their baseball team, do better. So they build these stadiums, and like the super regional is the first step for a mid-major to take off.
No doubt.
And that's what they're focused on.
I did a podcast with him, I think a week and a half ago. I think it's coming out this Wednesday. But I sat down with Chad Holbrook at the College of Charleston, and there are 2 weekend match as we're talking mid-major ball, 2 mid-majors that we haven't talked about yet, and I'm going to dive into. But the College of Charleston, we've bragged on their pitching staff, and Will Dorton, who they lost 3 Power 5 guys. They lost a draft guy last year, and like they've just replenished, and they've been top 10 in almost every pitching category this year. Like their Friday guy against Northeastern this weekend didn't even throw, right? And they still find a way to win the weekend. What they're doing with the bat, though, like that against Northeastern, against a team that doesn't like walk, dude, like they found pitches in the zone and they ambushed all weekend. One of the coolest storylines that we saw, CFC is up 7 in the 8th on Friday night against Northeastern. And all of a sudden, the guys we've been bragging all year, Sirota and Maldonado, these guys are all waking up at the wrong time for the rest of the CAA. They erased the 7-run deficit. They beat the College of Charleston in extra innings. And if you're CFC, you're like, man, our midseason stopper of the year nominee just blew this game. Like, what do we do? This is such a big weekend RPI in conference. And then they bounce back on Saturday and hang 18 on Northeastern. And then yesterday, same story, same song and dance, Sunday, Run Day, Fun Day. And it's a freaking tight pitcher's duel in the 8th inning when a dude, a 6th-year senior, a bounce-around guy that's battled injuries, Kevin Madden, hits a game-winning grand slam in the bottom of the 8th with 2 outs, down 2 runs. Like, how cool is that? On senior day, his last home game of his career, started his career at VT, ends up at South Carolina, tears his hip last year, like just tears it and has surgery and misses the whole year, right? Kevin Madden was a guy that played at South Carolina. Just wanted a chance to play a little bit more baseball. South Carolina moves on from him. It's a Power 5 and he gets to find this home at College of Charleston. And he's hitting 330, 12 homers, and like basically, in my opinion, a game-winning grand slam that almost solidifies an at-large bid for them this year. And I circle back to the podcast I did with Chad, and like Holbrook was like, this is a guy that's won 2 national championships at South Carolina, was a former Power 5 coach. And like for him, he said the same sentiment, which was for us, like we haven't done a ton of winning. And I'm like, you've been like 15 games over 500 every year. And he's like, yeah, but like we haven't been able to make the next step. Like you have to be able to keep moving the ball forward in order to be in East Carolina. You have to do that to be a Dallas Baptist. Like it has to become commonplace that you're in a regional every year. And we haven't done that. So to have an old guy in this college baseball landscape where everyone's old, like it was so fitting for him to have that moment on Sunday to like kind of get College of Charleston over the hump in Holbrook's tenure.
Yeah, dude, you said everything spot on. Like this
Oh,
series was one of the series that was 100% worth logging into my Flow Sports account. And dude, I happened to turn it on Sunday night or Sunday evening in like the 7th or 8th inning, and I'm like, wow, like good for Northeastern. Like they bounce back, they're holding these bats, to just 2 runs, and then like you could start feeling the momentum that Charleston was getting. And anytime in college baseball, a team gets momentum, more times than not, they're going to take advantage of it. And man, not only was I impressed with the Kevin Madden grand slam where he worked a good at bat and put himself in position to attack a pitch in the zone, but the way that his teammates in like the dugout reacted when he hit it, I mean, it was a regional atmosphere, right? Like that's how you react when you get a big hit in a regional. And man, I think this Charleston Cougar team is dangerous because they do have the pitching and like they do have the old guys that have been there before. One of the best two-way players in the country as well. Um, yeah, like this, it's going to be hard for me. Like it's going to have to take a special regional when the regional odds come out, like who's going to win this regional, for me not to bet or
I know.
invest in like a College of Charleston to win the regional at plus 600 or like plus 800 because they have the depth to do it.
They have all the storylines too, right? Like
Mhm.
I think they graduated 11. They celebrated 11 seniors yesterday, 2 of which were guys that like were done playing baseball. Like Emmett Bice was a reliever of them who's had heart surgery 3 times and is leading this College of Charleston pen in strikeouts. And like they straight up told me, they're like, yeah, we didn't think this guy was ever going to play baseball again. Cole Sink, who's got 16 home runs on the year for the College of Charleston, was a high point guy the last 4 years, wanted to come get his master's, reached out. You want to talk about pushing your buttons a little bit. You want to talk about a real walk on? This guy just showed up. Like there was no preferred about it. Like he just showed up after they told him, hey, we're good. We got a lot of guys at that position. Like we have another Cole at the first base spot that's probably going to be a first rounder. Like they've got all these really fun pieces. And man, to your point, we're talking about a CFC team that made 2 super regionals I guess it was 14 and 16.
Yeah, a decade ago.
14 and 16 to Texas Tech and Lubbock. Like, and that was before Chad's tenure. That was when Monty Lee was still there. So yesterday they told me that was the loudest they've ever heard Patriots point down here in Charleston. So like they're building something big. And to your point, like those are the storylines. Like college baseball is filled with them every year. Those are the storylines that, yes, I'm biased because I'm around this program, but like it makes all the sense in the world. Another storyline I want to dive into, all this mid-major talk, and 8th in conference RPI this year. 8th is the SoCon. Your Mercer Bears are obviously like, the SoCon better than anyone. We had that UNCG and Samford series keyed up. I think Samford's kind of been the powerhouse all year. UNCG's got an interim head coach right now. I was at the D2 ranks last couple of years, or excuse me, he was a junior college D2 guy last couple of years. And in his first year, like they're playing out of their mind. And maybe the coolest storyline that nobody knows about, Caleb Cozart, we talked about, slugging 800, the 22 homers, the 72 RBIs. Yeah, that's all great. But like you forget that kid, Zach Cozart, the brother, like #1 catcher prospect in the country. Dude, Caleb was like a big time pitching recruit that starts his career at North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
He gets Tommy John. And while he's going to get Tommy John, they find that he's got a brain tumor. This is all like public knowledge. And it's malignant. They go out, they remove it. And like, he kind of gets this second, like life in college baseball in a sense. And now he's hitting and he's like one of the best bats in the country. They get a D2 transfer yesterday to walk-off homer. They beat Samford. And hey, dude, go look it up. Warren Nolan says that this is the 8th best conference in baseball. Like, and they're probably only going to get one team in. So like, to your point about the College of Charleston, like plus 600 to win a regional, I don't even know who it's going to be coming out of the SoCon, but like if it's UNCG with those storylines, if it's Samford, if it's Wofford, who's like #1 in the country, and you're going to be damned if I'm not going to hypothetically invest in one of those teams either.
Yeah, 100%. And the SoCon always wins at least one game in regionals, right? Like last year, Samford, I think, won. They beat Southern Miss game 1 and then lose like a 12-inning game to Penn in game 2. But if they win that game, like Samford might advance to a super. And then like UNCG made it in 2022. I don't remember if they won a game, but they played against Georgia Southern really tight, and then I think Texas Tech. They might have won that game at Texas Tech, but yeah, the SoCon is one of the most one of the most underrated conferences in the game because these teams play good midweeks because they're like right there in the heart of ACC and SEC country, and man, they get a lot of kickbacks from these ACC and SEC schools, guys that transfer out that aren't getting playing time. They go down and play in the SoCon. So yeah, between like UNCG, Samford, Wofford, and even ETSU, who's like sitting at like 50 something RPI, ETSU can really swing the bats too. And it's going to be a fun conference tournament coming up. But I'm telling you right now, and like someone will probably clip this. This is the year that Mercer just goes on a run and wins the conference tournament. They're so bad right now, dude, giving up like 15 runs a game over their last 10 games. But something's going to click. They did it in 2019. 2019 was not a good year for them, and then they go and win the SoCon tournament. It's just going to happen, and we're going to see like a 29 and probably like a 29 and 31 Mercer team that's going to end up winning the conference tournament.
How about them Bears? Them Bears.
The Bears blew a 10-1 lead yesterday. It was not a good day in the Upton household. Man, that was pretty much all I have for this episode. I guess I should address this Charlie Condon situation. Man, I put out a tweet on Friday, and it was, I think some people, or no, I definitely had a majority of the people understand what I was trying to say. And then there was a big group of Georgia Bulldog faithful that disagreed 100% and kind of came after me. The tweet was really to have Charlie Condon's back. I'm pulling up the tweet right now. I don't remember the exact wording, but man, I was just getting. I'll read the tweet and then I'll tell my thoughts. So the tweet was before this media narrative goes any further, let's go ahead and settle this. Point one: Charlie Condon did not go to any kind of walk-on tryout at Georgia, which is a fact. And the media narrative was almost like a domino effect because I started reading these little blogs from no-name bloggers or like small accounts that were just basically painting it to be like Charlie Condon showed up to Georgia's campus unannounced and walked on through a tryout and like stuck around and redshirted his freshman year. So the second point I made was like he was one of the top high school prospects in the state of Georgia his senior year, and he absolutely was. Like I knew about Charlie Condon, being close to the Mercer baseball program, because like obviously he had a high school teammate that was on Mercer's team at that year, and the coaching staff like wanted this 6'5" guy, playing private school baseball in Georgia, but is tearing it up in these summer ball tournaments with a wood bat. Mercer was all over him and really wanted Charlie Condon because he was a big name, small school. He was ranked the number one first baseman in the state of Georgia his senior year. And he was also like 30th prospect in the state of Georgia, which is a high school baseball hotbed, right? Like, dude. So there's a lot of points I want to say. I'll try to trim off a lot of the fat. Like one, as a former high school first baseman myself, like I had multiple Division I offers and I was a nobody in the state of Texas. Like I was not all state. I was not this guy that was, I was not this guy that was a name brand, like everybody, but like multiple Division I offers through like emails, phone calls, letters. And it's just because like I would perform well in the summertime for these travel ball teams and like put up good high school numbers. I was 6'1", 108, 195 pounds as a senior. But Charlie Condon, anyways, I'm getting off the point. I'm getting off the point. One,
no, you're setting.
He was a walk-on. Like he was a preferred walk-on for the Georgia Bulldogs. But he had a spot on the team. Like a preferred walk-on in baseball is just as good as being a scholarship guy. The only difference is like you're just paying a little bit more money out of your pocket. College baseball scholarship limit is 11.7 scholarships. That is why we are named 11.7. Charlie Condon also graduated in 2021, which was a year after COVID. So there was a lot of teams at the time that had backed up rosters. Everybody had another year of eligibility. So, you can't just take away a kid's scholarship when, he was supposed to be a dude in 2020 for you. You were expecting him to get drafted. He comes back and it's like, okay, that scholarship's gone. We will give you a preferred walk on, quote unquote. And in fact, they gave him a gray shirt. Everybody's familiar with the red shirt thing, where, you red shirt, you don't play. But a gray shirt is something that became really popular around COVID time, where it's like, okay, we're going to technically red shirt you. A gray shirt promises a scholarship for the next year. Like you're going to be put on scholarship the next year, which is awesome. There was a lot of gray shirts going around COVID time. So Charlie Condon knew he was going to be on scholarship the next year. Another point I wanted to make is like there were several. Like I'll be completely transparent. There were 3 coaches at the Division I level that saw this tweet. It's kind of going viral. It reached like 250,000 people. There were 3 coaches, one from Mercer, obviously, and then 2 other that were like, yeah, we were in on Condon, but his perfect game profile said he was committed to Georgia. He said he was committed to Georgia, and like we can't compete with a Georgia Bulldog. Like logo, nothing. Like there's nothing we can offer him that Georgia doesn't have. And if he's verbally committed to Georgia and all this stuff, like we're not going to spend our time and resources and money going after him. And like, remember, Georgia was the #1 team in the country in 2020 before COVID shut things down. So to have a preferred walk-on spot for the #1 team in the country is like almost every single mid-major player in the country would trade their lives for that. Right. To be on that team.
Yeah.
And, Georgia hosted a regional in 2019. So like this was a premier program at the time. But anyways, so the reason why I put the tweet out is because like I did not want to see these dominoes fall any further. Plus, it's like a disservice to like how good of a high school player Charlie Condon is. Like, do yourself a favor if you disagree with me, go read his bio on the Georgia Bulldogs baseball website. It's like, you know, first team all state, like perfect game all American. He was a top 300 perfect game incoming freshman that year. Like he was a damn good high school baseball player that was just kind of sitting, like he redshirted because he had a team that was #1 in the country that everybody got a year of eligibility back for that 2021 season. So he, like the thing that we should be focused on is like how he actually didn't transfer out. Like he sat there, he grinded, he hit the weight room, he became a better player. He learned from the guys before him. Like that's the story that like people are shadowing over. I get it. Like there's media clicks. Like he's this walk-on kid that like nobody, like no other. He had 0 scholarship offers, so he went to Georgia. Like that's just not true. That's exaggerated. Like it's not true. But like the story should be like how he worked hard, he grinded it out. He did not play his freshman year, and became a better baseball player. Went off in the summer after his freshman year and got significantly better, so that when his redshirt freshman season came around, 2023, he was hit 25 homers, was the best freshman in the country, and like that should be the story. Like let's give Charlie Condon his flowers that way, rather than painting him as this like absolute nobody that nobody knew about. He was going to go play Division III football. Like as much as like that is like it is somewhat true, where he was planning on playing Division III football because he was a stud quarterback too. But like to say that he had 0 interest by any other school, to say he had, he was a nobody and had to go to a walk-on tryout, like that part is not true. So like let's not stretch the narrative any further.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, dude, I love Charlie Condon. I think he's having the greatest hitting season of my lifetime by far. He's put himself in that #1 overall draft pick position. He's going to win the Golden Spikes this year. Like I love him to death, but like I want him to be painted as this guy that had to, I want his legacy to be like this is the right way to do things. Like he,
You're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
You're hitting the nail on the head because there's nothing to disagree with you on. Like this is the ultimate, like, oh, you just don't know ball conversation, because like you and I jumped on the phone and we were like, it's a disservice to like his high school coaches and his high school travel teammates and like all these guys that like have watched this guy go crazy. Right. So the conversation was never like, oh, like this is BS, right? It was more so of like a, come on, bro, he was the 30th ranked player in the state of Georgia. Like he had 30 plus offers then. Like, dude, like,
Yeah. I mean,
like,
Jack,
so-
you did like perfect game events. If you win a perfect game tournament award, like an all tournament team or whatever, you're getting emails and letters and phone calls from many different schools. And like, of course, like Charlie Condon, like probably got called by like a Morehead State or somebody. And he was like, no, I'm committed to Georgia. Like that's probably how conversations went.
he, yeah, there's the main part of the story, and I'll talk about like what it should be versus what's happening right now, which is like something that I kind of went off on like I guess last week. But there's this idea that in the college baseball landscape, right? Like after what he did last year, he could have easily bounced, right? Georgia didn't have a good year. He could have easily bounced, and a big school, like not to name names, could have given him the bag and he could have gone and made a bunch of money. The story, to your point, should be Georgia wasn't good last year. They weren't anticipated by anybody to be good again this year. Nobody.
And
Nobody saw. Nobody
and
saw.
he gets a whole new coaching staff. Like not, it's not Scott Strickland that recruited him and he trusted. Like this is a brand new coaching staff. Like it was the easy answer to go transfer somewhere else. Go play at LSU and make millions.
Right. That's like when, like, if you want to talk about the Pandora's box of the portal, like that is actually the reason to leave. Is like if your coaches who weren't there for you bounce. But instead, he goes to Team USA. He loves the city of Athens. He loves the Georgia baseball culture. He loved his teammates, and he decided to come back and buy all in on it. And now he's enjoying one of the greatest seasons of all time. But what's happening right now is kind of what I talked about, like with the Barstool baseball guys that I got a ton of backlash on and a ton of people agreeing with me. But it wasn't a slight on like Barstool baseball. I understand that we live in a social media world where like every click and every impression equals financial gain. I get it, bro. Like I totally get it. But if you want this sport to be like college football and college basketball, why are we just now starting to talk about it? I get why, because there's nothing competing with it. Cool. But if your first story jumping in on the college baseball world was, when I went off, it was, why are we shitting all over a reliever from Georgia for doing something that 85% of pitchers are doing? And call any college pitching coach in the country. Everyone's using sticky stuff. But we're going to pile on a kid because it's more fun to get the clickbait story out and pile on. And it's just like what we talked about, this story too. It's just telephone. Remember the telephone game where I whisper in your ear by the time it gets down the line? That's exactly what this Condon story was. Everyone was piling on and adding their own little sprinkle and nugget to the story so they could 10x their views instead of just talking about what this is. One of the greatest college baseball seasons of all time, next to Berkman, next to Will Smith. So like that sucks. Like, and that's a disservice to him. Like we're not taking away from what it is, but to call him a walk-on is a disservice to what he did in high school. Like at all. Like absolutely.
Yeah. And like, I think one more thing about this situation is like, this is college baseball. This is a completely different sport when it comes to athletic and academic money than football and basketball. Like when you see somebody in the football level being a walk-on, it's like, oh, he didn't get one of the 85 scholarships. Like that is a big story, right? Or in basketball, like, oh, he didn't get any of the 13 scholarships for the 5 or 15-man team.
Facts.
Like college baseball, there are walk-ons out there that you guys probably see and cheer for all the time. And like Jake Mangum, walk-on at Mississippi State. He didn't get any athletic money, but he's the greatest SEC. He has the most SEC hits of all time. Like there are walk-ons on the baseball field that are absolute superstars because they're not getting athletic money because either they deferred it and like won it to their teammates. Like, hey, my parents can afford this. I'm an in-state kid. I want our team to be a lot better. Or it's just like, hey man, like we need to go out and use our scholarships to get pitching. Like you're a position player, you're not, but we'll help you with, academic money. We'll get you an NIL deal. Like we'll get you money where you're not paying, but technically in the terms of NCAA, you're a walk-on, right? So when these news outlets, big news outlets are saying like, he's a walk-on and like he had no scholarship offers, dude, that's so normal in college baseball.
Bro.
Like that's why it's such a treat when you do get offered an athletic scholarship, because it's like, wow, like this team wants to invest in me. But so I think what it is, there was a lot of stories being written about Charlie Condon and his walk-on journey where like some teams would sit down, or not some teams, some outlets might sit down and talk to him or talk to whoever, and then these other outlets are taking that information from the ESPN or from the Fox Sports or whatever, Athens, whatever, and they're putting their own twist on it. So it was to add to the story. Like, they're not talking to Condon directly. They're not talking to anybody directly related. They're taking the information from this story that was published and like they're adding on to it.
And that's the worst part. Like, there's no fact checking anymore. Like, we live in like a clickbait world. So like, they're not even writing stories with the source. They're writing stories on a story, but not even doing research. So it's the beauty of, and I'll even one up you as a fan. Like, you might be sitting back and watching a guy in Omaha that's on 0 athletic scholarship money. Dude, there were locker rooms that you were in that it was like, it's almost like in like common currency. You didn't talk about like religion and politics in a locker room. You were walking around your boys that like me be dogs, and you had no idea that they would walk on. So it was like, to one up, like, you don't even know if your boys were on money or not, because like you didn't really want to talk about it because it wasn't like totally comfortable until like obviously it became like a little bit more clear cut in season stuff when coaches might build themes and storylines around it. But it's the beauty in what you've done with your brand is like the 11.7 brand was to bring justice and like show how ridiculous the current format and setting is, that there are going to be guys in Omaha this year playing in front of 50,000 people and another million at home that are on 0 money and are going to leave college with loans and debt like that.
And that's, I mean, most of the guys playing, like, I don't know, like take the Oral Roberts team from last year. Like, most of those guys are leaving with hundreds of thousands in debt, but they're playing in Omaha.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different sport. Like, it is a sport as a high school recruit where if a coach offers you a 30% athletic scholarship, like that is a big deal. Like, you're a big deal to their program because only 20 guys can get 30 to 40%. But anyways, I mean, I know we've harped on it a lot. Look, I think that real college baseball fans understood what I was saying. Like, I did not say anything incorrect. There was many people that were like, "You're a liar." Like, you're being, what's the word? Dude, a bunch of people were just being like, "You're lying," or "You're wrong," or "You're like." None of the bullet points that I said were wrong. Like, he did not go to a walk-on tryout. And I want nobody to write about him going on a walk-on tryout. I read an article. It's still up. You can probably find it, but it's like, that is incorrect. Like, I have sources inside the Georgia locker room that are like, "No, dude, no shot. We didn't have walk-on tryouts with a roster of 50 coming off of COVID. Like, you were either redshirt." So anyways, that was not incorrect. And the second thing of him being like one of the top Georgia prospects in the country, like, that is factual as well. So, man, I know I'm probably hurt some feelings and probably hurt some stories, or not stories, but hurt some opinions on this situation. But like, the facts are the facts. Like, Charlie Condon is a freaking stud baseball player. He did not come out of nowhere. Like, he kind of got hurt by the COVID situation, but honestly, if like dude, like, honestly, like, he is what this sport is all about. Like, he's a true college baseball guy that he went through more than what, he went through more than what a top overall prospect would go through. Like, he had to see some bad days of like, hey, I'm not contributing to the team, so I have to keep my head on and work harder to perform for next year. But like, sticking it out through a college, when he had multiple opportunities to transfer and just absolutely dominating the game in the most humble and like, the most like, just he's just a good person, man. Like, he's a great dude, and like, I don't want his legacy to be smeared by him, being this like, nobody at a high school walk on. Like, dude, he's always been a stud. He was a starting quarterback for 4 years on his high school team. He's an athlete, man. Like, he's a leader. He's somebody that is, what is so good about this sport. So I know we took a long time to address it, but
We only did 15 minutes. I was just thinking how we could have done a whole pod. Like, we should have done an emergency pod when this was all going down, because you and I both like could have gone crazy on it.
yeah, I really just wanted to smooth things over with the Georgia faithful, because like, I think they look at me now as like this guy that's trying to make clickbait stuff, but it's like, no, dude, I'm just trying to protect our sport and trying to protect our our best player in the country right now. And like, I don't want these people that don't pay attention to college baseball for 50 weeks out of the season to come in and like swoop in and start these crazy stories and rumors and drama. Like, just trying to inform everybody like how the college baseball world works. And like, I promise you that Kennesaw State, Mercer, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Samford, UAB. Like, dude, everybody would have died for Charlie Condon to come to their school in 2021. He would have been an everyday starter. Everybody wanted him, but when he has the commitment to UGA, it's like, oh man, we can't compete with that. Like, we'll reach out to him and talk to him, but he's going to do what he's going to do, and he's just going to say, I'm committed to the University of Georgia. Like, that's the type of guy he is.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Hey man, why don't we just get down to the nitty gritty, Hoover, and we'll interview the boy. We'll ask him.
I'd love to, man. I think he's got an awesome story, dude.
Sick.
And he might be too big time for us now. Like, not he doesn't think that, but I'm just saying, like, the media access that he gets is the top of the top right now. So I would love to interview him though.
Oh, we'll make it happen. I'm not worried.
You'll make it happen. You're able to get anybody.
We'll make it
But
happen.
anyways, that's the closing thoughts. Big midweeks ahead. I imagine a lot of them will get possibly canceled. There's some weather across the states that even if there's a 5% chance of rain, they're going to cancel it if it's going to hurt their RPI. We are in blind resume season. We are in RPI cancellation season. We are in hot, cold, hot theory season. This, middle of May, a week before conference tournaments, a whole bunch of fun stuff starts coming out. So, man, y'all check us out on social media. If you're new to the show, we really appreciate you listening. We do have a very loyal and fun fan base. It's awesome because, we get to see the same, there's a core group of guys that interact with us on social media. And we try to follow all those guys back on the account because we are interested in our fans as well. Like, that's what's built this platform for us is fans investing in us investing in the fans. And we're trying to figure it all out on the fly, but it's been a freaking blast. Year 6 for us at 11.7. And this is the time of the year where it is a lot of fun. And Jack, we're going to end the show on this. I forgot. 1 second.
Hit me.
We're going to play a little guess this mid-major.
Yes.
Dude, I forgot to do it last episode. And so for anybody that's new, on Club Bromaha, our YouTube live show that me and Jack do, we play this game called Guess This Mid-Major. And it is a random spin through the RPI. And so the way to play, if you're a podcast listener, if you're a YouTube watcher, I have the RPI shared right now. And I literally scroll through like this, close my eyes, and we land on a team like this one would be Bucknell.
Oh!
And it's like trying to hit the lottery. So the rules are it has to be a mid-major. So think of any mid-major in the country, whether it's Tarleton State or it's Florida A&M, UMBC, it doesn't matter. Anybody that's not in a Power 5. So we play until we land on a mid-major, and Jack and I will both make our picks. And it's just if you hit it, that's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
It's bet we went for one the first time we ever played. We should preface that. Hey, can we do Club Omaha this week? What do you have this week?
I have to look at my schedule. I think I can. I think possibly tomorrow would be the day, but we'll talk. We do love Club Omaha though. Maybe Friday. Maybe a Friday Club Omaha would be fun too if you're not broadcasting. But anyways, let's do our. So I'm gonna close my eyes.
Wait, who's your pick? Who's your pick?
Oh wait! I have to make my pick. I'm gonna say it's gonna be I'm gonna say Missouri Valley Conference, and I'm gonna say Bradley. Bradley's my pick.
Okay, I am gonna go. I'm so excited. I'm gonna go with. Hey, stay keyed up. It's the VMI Keydets. That's who I'm going with. Yeah.
Bradley, VMI.
For the truth, both sides.
We're going to give it a good little mix up here. Promise you I'm not looking. YouTube can see my head's down. Eyes are closed. Yeah. Back and forth. And we're going to go with.
I'll give you the countdown. 5. 4, 3, 2, 1, and go.
Am I on a team?
Oh, yeah. Mississippi Valley State. Come on down.
The Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils, 6-30 on the year, the 299 strength of schedule, and 3-24 in the SWAC.
Hey, tough year for Mississippi Valley State, but guess what? You won our random roulette.
Random mid-major roulette. Oh, dude, I'm gonna actually show you one more thing that I think I'm gonna pull out.
Oh,
When the field of 64, hold on. When the field of 64, I gotta find this website. Where did it go? There's like a website that there's like tons of different like random pickers, right?
okay.
And some of them, like you can do like horse races, you can do like a claw machine, like a crane machine, and like drop down and pick one random. Like, dude, there's so many different options.
Oh, to pick a champion?
Yeah, so I'm gonna put the list of field of 64, and
Oh, that sounds
for Club
awesome.
Omaha, we'll just spend the whole time. People can comment like, all right, I want a team. We'll pick them out from the comment section and be like, all right, Dan Schroeder, your team is gonna be the Fairfield Stags,
That sounds
and
awesome.
we'll pick it with like a claw or like run a horse race. Dude, I gotta pull this up real fast because it's so much fun. There's so many different options. Is this the website? Nope. All right, cool. It's onlinestopwatch.com. And I got to share my screen here. If you're a podcast listener, you don't care. We can end the show as far as you can turn us off. But if you're a YouTube subscriber, check this out.
What?
So like you can do a horse race. So like 4 horses. I don't even know how to
Make a regional for all 4 teams. I'm gonna do my entire bracket like this.
Yeah, so like 11-second race. Ready, set. I don't know how to start it. Hold on.
I've never been more obsessed with anything.
So like we can have, and you can put names, and these are numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can put like Austin P, Clemson, Mississippi State, and run the race. Like, oh, the 3 seed won. You can also do, check this out.
That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire
life. They got Magic Box, Magic Hat, card picker. Look, the crane machine here. The claw. And like I can go around and pick. So like I think you go to settings. Here's the names. So look, we can do this.
Oh, Jack in the Box for Jack. That's actually how I'll do it.
Let me delete these names. All right, give me like, let's just do the SEC real fast. So let's do LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, A&M, Vandy, Tennessee, Mizzou, Florida, South Carolina, who am I forgetting? Alabama. There's 3 more. Who we got? Oh, Arkansas.
Did you say A&M?
Kentucky, and
Carolina. No, did you? I don't know who you said.
Auburn, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Oh, LSU. No, that's 13.
Missouri.
Got Mizzou.
Just run it. Just say fun.
Whatever team I missed. I'm sorry. I just cannot think of that 14th team right. Oh, Vandy, Tennessee. Oh, got them.
Georgia?
Oh, Georgia, duh.
Georgia, you do hate Georgia. Georgia fans, solidified. Ben hates you.
All right, look, and then you can do this little claw machine, so you can go wherever. So where do you want me to drop this thing? It's like, who's going to win the SEC tournament in Hoover?
Yeah. Do it.
Right there. Boom. Mississippi State.
Congratulations, Bulldogs. That's awesome.
Dude, how much fun is that? Oh, wait. Was I not even sharing my screen? Oh, dude, wait, hold on. I was on the wrong screen. Hold on, boys. I got to share this screen. So you guys weren't even watching me. Okay.
We were during the horse race.
All right, there we go. All right, so you see how it took Mississippi State there?
Coolest thing I've ever seen.
Let's not remove it. Let's continue.
Let's
do it again.
Online what?
OnlineStopwatch.com. They got tons of games. So we're going to right here. Who's going to win the SEC tournament? They also have So they
This-
have a
It couldn't be more up our alley, Ben. This is the best thing ever. Congratulations, Florida. You're going to need to win the SEC to get in. So good work.
dude, check out some of these games. They have a scratch card, like a scratch off that you can pick your scratch off. They got fishing, duck hunting, hook a duck.
Yeah, all
And
in.
then there's some races too. Look at this. Where is the race? Oh, race timers. Here we go. You can do a duck race, an emoji race, leprechaun race, monster race. You got like these running timers. The horse racing's down here as well. Camel race, greyhound race.
Can I race a camel?
So we're gonna have to do that for like Field of 64, or the next Club
Every-
Omaha would be sick. Like we could do conference tournament winners, horse
Every
racing.
single pick. I won't use my clearly for those who haven't been following along, the worst hypothetical investors in the world. I would be great if I just faded myself every single time with my picks. Well, guess what? I'm taking the decision making off the table. Congratulations. I will be doing the claw for every single one of my Field of 64 picks. Fairfield versus Arkansas. Oh, don't like Hagen Smith in that matchup? Doesn't matter. If the claw picked Fairfield, guess what? We ride or die.
If the claw picks Fairfield. Yeah, so we're gonna have so much fun on that. Anyways, appreciate everybody listening to our episode. Big time. Expect a lot more longer episodes now that we're near the postseason. But anyways, appreciate everybody's support. Go check out homefieldapparel.com. Do not miss Friday's drop because those will sell out very quickly. And we'll be back later this week for a little weekend series preview. Field of 64 coming too. We love each and every one of you.